Sarah and Mark had built a life together that many would envy. They married young, chasing dreams through the complexities of life hand in hand. After moving to a new city for fresh opportunities, they navigated lean years with determination and love. Now, as they raised their 3 beautiful children, Emily, Jake, and little Mia, they finally felt the fruits of their labor, successful careers, a comfortable home, and laughter that echoed through their walls. Their home was filled with the essence of family, crayon drawings on the fridge, toys strewn across the living room, and the smell of home-cooked meals wafting from the kitchen. Sarah often reminisced about their early days, the sleepless nights spent with a newborn, and the joy of celebrating each milestone. Mark had always been her rock, supportive and loving, and she couldn't imagine her life without him. But as summer turned to fall, Sarah felt a chill creeping into their lives. The changes began subtly. Mark's late nights at work became more frequent, and the spark in their relationship began to dim. She brushed it off at first, attributing it to the demands of his new job. Yet, a nagging feeling in her gut told her something was amiss. When Mark received an offer from a prestigious firm, Sarah celebrated his achievement with him. "This is your big break. I'm so proud of you," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around him. But then came the unsettling news: he was taking Carla, his notoriously difficult assistant, with him. "She's crazy but also good at her job," he explained, brushing aside Sarah's concerns about Carla's erratic behavior. Sarah's gut twisted at the thought. She had heard stories about Carla, her demanding nature, her tendency to blur professional boundaries, but Mark insisted that she was an invaluable asset, and Sarah wanted to be supportive. "Just remember, I'm always here for you," she said, forcing a smile. As the weeks progressed, Mark's commitment to his new role kept him at the office late into the night, often returning home well past the children's bedtime. The dinners with Carla became more frequent, and Mark often returned home exhausted but eager to share stories from his day. Yet, something felt off. Sarah could sense a distance growing, as if an invisible wall was rising between them. Mark came home later and later. He began to lock his phone, which had never been the case before. Sarah hesitated to look at it, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. One evening, while Mark was in the shower, she noticed a text notification from Carla flash on the screen. The message was brief but flirtatious: "Can't wait for our meeting tomorrow. Just you and me." Her heart raced as she tried to convince herself that her worries were unfounded, but the more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that something was amiss. Desperate for answers, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Days turned into weeks, and the late nights became routine. One night, while Mark was asleep, Sarah gathered the courage to try to unlock his phone. She knew it was risky, but she needed to know the truth. After a few failed attempts, she entered the date of birth of their youngest child, Mia, and to her astonishment, the screen unlocked. Her heart raced as she scanned through his messages. At first, there were mundane texts about work, but as she scrolled further, her heart sank. There it was, an entire thread of texts between Mark and Carla, filled with playful banter that quickly escalated to flirtation. "You make work so much fun. I can't wait for our next dinner together," one message read, followed by a string of heart emojis. Sarah felt a wave of nausea wash over her. How long had this been going on? She quickly locked the phone and set it back down, her heart pounding in her chest. Days passed, and Sarah's heart sank further into despair. She resolved to follow Mark one evening, convinced that she needed proof of his betrayal. As she trailed him, she felt like a detective in a film, her heart pounding in her chest. Mark drove to a hotel on the outskirts of town. Sarah parked discreetly a few blocks away, anxiety gnawing at her. With a mix of fear and determination, she approached the entrance, her heart racing. She waited in the shadows, watching as Mark entered the building. After what felt like an eternity, she saw Carla arrive. The sight of them together made her stomach churn. They exchanged laughter that felt like daggers to her heart. Then, to her horror, they shared a kiss, a brief but passionate moment that left Sarah breathless with betrayal. Fury and heartbreak coursed through Sarah as she watched them. She couldn't believe what she was witnessing. When Mark finally left the hotel, Sarah confronted him as soon as he walked through the front door, her voice shaking with emotion. "How could you do this to us?" Mark's face drained of color as he stammered. "Sarah, it's not what you think. I was working late, but the lies fell flat in the face of the evidence she had witnessed. You were with Carla. Mark, I saw you. You kissed her. The silence was deafening as Mark stared at her, realization dawning in his eyes. I can explain, but Sarah cut him off, tears streaming down her face. No more lies. Mark, you've betrayed me in the worst way possible. The days that followed were filled with anguish. Mark moved out of their bedroom, and Sarah found herself alone in a house that felt foreign. The laughter of their children echoed eerily against the backdrop of her heartbreak. Desperate for answers, Sarah spiraled into a dark place. She discovered more texts on Mark's phone while he was asleep one night, flirtatious messages, plans for secret meetings, and the unmistakable signs of an affair. Each message felt like a dagger to her heart, and the pain became unbearable. The children sensed the tension between their parents and often asked why mommy and daddy were fighting. Sarah would force a smile, telling them everything was fine, but inside, she felt like she was crumbling. She wanted to protect them from the truth, but each day became a struggle. One fateful evening, Sarah decided to take a drive to clear her head. She needed to escape the suffocating pain and anger that engulfed her. As she drove through the quiet streets, tears streamed down her face, and her mind raced with thoughts of betrayal and loss. The world around her blurred as she replayed the moments of happiness they once had, the laughter that now felt like a ghost. Distracted by her thoughts, she lost track of her surroundings. In a split second of distraction, she failed to see the red light ahead of her. A loud crash shattered the silence of the night, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. When Mark received the call about the accident, panic gripped him. He had been caught up in his guilt and shame, lost in a world that now felt empty without Sarah. He rushed to the hospital, dread pooling in his stomach. When he arrived, he found Sarah in a hospital bed, surrounded by the sterile smell of antiseptic and the beeping of machines. She was alive but barely clinging to consciousness. As he knelt beside her, tears streamed down his face. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I never meant for any of this to happen, he whispered, his voice breaking into sobs. But Sarah could barely hear him. The betrayal, the pain, and the chaos of their lives had taken their toll. In that moment, she felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the life they had built together, but for the love that had been destroyed by his choices. Days turned into weeks as Sarah remained in a fragile state, clinging to life. Mark was a ghost, haunted by the choices he had made that led to this moment. He sat by her bedside, replaying every decision, every moment of neglect, and every lie. He realized that he had lost everything, his wife, his family, and the love that had once filled their home. As Sarah lay in her hospital bed, she felt the weight of their life together. In her heart, she knew that things would never be the same. She longed to forgive, to heal, but the scars of betrayal ran too deep. One night, as the hospital lights dimmed and the world outside grew quiet, Sarah took a turn for the worse. Mark held her hand tightly, tears streaming down his face. I love you, Sarah, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. I'm so sorry for everything. But Sarah could barely respond. At that moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over her. She closed her eyes, letting go of the pain and betrayal that had consumed her. As she breathed her last, Mark realized too late that he had lost the most precious thing in his life, his wife, the mother of his children, and the love that had once filled their home. In the aftermath of Sarah's death, Mark was left to grapple with the emptiness that now defined his existence. The darkness that had taken hold of their lives had claimed its final victim. Mark would forever be haunted by the choices that led to this tragedy, realizing that his pursuit of success and ambition had come at an unimaginable cost. As he walked through their home, now filled with echoes of laughter that would never return, Mark knew that he had lost everything that truly mattered. The shadows of betrayal lingered in every corner, reminding him of the love that had once filled the space and the life that could have been. Months passed, and Mark struggled to find a way to move forward. He attended therapy, trying to understand the depth of his grief and guilt. He spoke about his feelings of regret, how he wished he had fought harder for his marriage, and how he had taken Sarah for granted. His therapist encouraged him to write letters to Sarah, expressing all the things he never got to say. Dear Sarah, he would write, I am so sorry for what I did. I never meant to hurt you. I let ambition cloud my judgment, and I lost sight of what was truly important. You were my everything. As he wrote, he felt a sense of release, but the guilt remained like a heavy anchor weighing him down. He started to reach out to Sarah's family, trying to mend the rift his actions had caused. They were hesitant at first, but slowly, they began to see his sincerity. Mark decided to honor Sarah's memory by starting a charity in her name, focused on helping families in need. He poured his heart into the project, hoping it would serve as a testament to the love they had shared. He wanted their children to know how much their mother had cared for others, and how she had always been the heart of their family. As the charity grew, Mark found purpose in his grief. He organized fundraisers, community events, and educational programs for children, activities Sarah would have loved. Through this work, he hoped to keep her spirit alive in the hearts of those they helped. Years passed, and Mark continued to navigate life as a single father. He watched Emily, Jake, and Mia grow, each of them carrying pieces of Sarah with them. He often found solace in their laughter, remembering the joy she had brought into their lives. One quiet evening, as Mark reflected on his journey, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had learned to forgive himself, to live with the regret, and to honor Sarah's memory in meaningful ways. The shadows of his past would always be with him, but they no longer defined him. Mark gathered his children around him, sharing stories of their mother, her kindness, her laughter, and her unwavering love. In those moments, he felt her presence, a reminder that love endures even in the face of tragedy. And as he looked into the eyes of his children, he knew that he would carry Sarah's legacy forward, ensuring that her spirit would never fade away.